The afternoon sun bore down on the bustling intersection where Rafael Navarro's small convenience store stood. It had been a typical day for Rafi, as his neighbors fondly called him, a hard-working Filipino immigrant who had carved out a modest but fulfilling life in this corner of the city. He stood outside the store, locking his delivery truck after unloading several boxes of supplies. His daughter, Maria, was inside the shop, arranging items on shelves with the precision and care that mirrored her father's dedication. Officer Clayton Reeves strode down the sidewalk, his imposing figure casting a long shadow. Reeves had a reputation in the neighborhood, and it wasn't a good one. Known for his short temper and an uncanny knack for targeting those who couldn't or wouldn't fight back, he had become a source of dread for many residents, particularly immigrants like Rafi. As Rafi turned to head back into his store, Reeves's voice cut through the din of the street. "Hey, you! You can't park that truck there. Don't you know how to read signs?" Startled, Rafi stopped and turned. His delivery truck was parked neatly along the curb in a space he had been using for years. "Officer, I just finished unloading," he explained in his soft, measured tone. "I'll move it in a moment." "A moment's too long," Reeves snapped, striding closer. "You think you can just do whatever you want here? This isn't your country. Or do they not have parking laws where you're from?" Rafi's face tightened, but he remained calm. "I'm sorry if I caused any inconvenience. I'll move it right now." But Reeves wasn't done. "Sorry doesn't cut it," he sneered. "What's the point of laws if people like you just ignore them? You people come here and think you can make up your own rules." A small crowd began to gather. Damon Rogers, a young man passing by on his way home, paused to take in the scene. He was tech-savvy and had an eye for injustice. Something about the officer's tone set off alarm bells in his mind. Discreetly, he pulled out his phone and began recording. Rafi stood his ground, his voice steady but firm. "Officer, I have not broken any laws. My truck is parked properly for deliveries, as it has been for years. If you'd like me to move it, I will." Reeves stepped closer, his hand resting on the baton at his side. "Don't talk back to me," he growled. "Do you even understand English? Or do I need to speak slower for you?" Maria emerged from the store at that moment, her eyes darting between her father and the officer. "Papa, is everything okay?" she asked, her voice tinged with worry. Reeves turned his attention to Maria, his sneer deepening. "Is this your daughter? Great. Another one to learn how to ignore the rules. Must run in the family." Maria's cheeks flushed with anger, but Rafi gently placed a hand on her arm. "Go back inside, Maria," he said quietly. Reeves chuckled. "Yeah, listen to your daddy. Wouldn't want you to learn too much about how we do things here." The crowd murmured uneasily, their discomfort growing. Damon moved closer, his phone still recording. "Hey man," he called out to Reeves. "Why don't you back off? The guy's just trying to run his business." Reeves whipped around to face Damon. "Stay out of this, unless you want to join him in jail." Damon didn't flinch. "Jail? For what? Parking? Or is it because he's not white enough for you?" Reeves's face darkened. "You'd better watch your mouth." "For what?" he snarled. "You have no idea who you're dealing with." "Oh, I think I do," Damon shot back, holding up his phone. "And so will everyone else." The officer's eyes flicked to the phone, realization dawning. But he doubled down, grabbing Rafi by the arm. "That's it. You're under arrest for resisting a lawful order." The crowd's murmurs grew louder. "He didn't resist anything," someone shouted. "Let him go!" "You can't do that!" Maria cried, rushing forward. "My father didn't do anything wrong." Reeves ignored her, pulling Rafi toward his patrol car. But before he could get far, Damon stepped directly in his path, holding the phone up like a shield. "You're making a big mistake," Damon said evenly. "This is all on video. Every word you've said, every move you've made." The crowd pressed closer, their anger palpable. "We all saw it," a woman called out. "You're not getting away with this." Reeves hesitated, his grip on Rafi's arm loosening. At that moment, the sound of another patrol car approaching cut through the air. Sergeant Yolanda Harris stepped out, her sharp gaze taking in the scene. "What's going on here?" she demanded. Reeves stiffened. "Just handling a situation, Sergeant. This man was resisting orders." Harris's eyes narrowed as she looked at Rafi, then at Damon, who held up his phone. "Is that so? Let me see the footage." Damon handed her the phone without hesitation. The crowd watched in tense silence as Harris played the video, her expression hardening with every second. When it ended, she turned to Reeves. "Officer Reeves, step away from Mr. Navarro," she ordered. "Now." Reeves's jaw clenched, but he obeyed. Rafi rubbed his wrist, the red marks from Reeves's grip a silent testimony to the officer's aggression. "We'll talk about this back at the station," Harris said coldly. "In the meantime, you're relieved of duty. Hand over your badge and weapon." The crowd erupted in cheers and applause as Reeves reluctantly complied. Maria ran to her father, throwing her arms around him as relief washed over her. Over the next few days, Damon's video went viral, sparking outrage and calls for accountability. News outlets picked up the story, shining a light on the systemic prejudice that had plagued the neighborhood for years. Officer Reeves faced suspension and an internal investigation, while Sergeant Harris publicly vowed to address the underlying issues within the department. Rafi's small store became a symbol of resilience and hope. Neighbors rallied around him, organizing meetings and events to foster unity and understanding. Maria took the lead in many of these efforts, her fierce determination inspiring others to stand up against injustice. The once tense and divided community began to change. Conversations replaced suspicion, and actions supplanted apathy. Rafi's quiet strength and Damon's boldness had sparked a movement that no one could ignore. As Rafi stood outside his store one afternoon, watching children play and neighbors chat, he felt a renewed sense of belonging. The struggle wasn't over, but for the first time, he believed that change was not only possible, but inevitable. And it all started with one moment of courage captured on video, proving that even in the face of injustice, the truth could prevail.